You're listening to Well Met,
Well Met,
a Hearthstone podcast brought to you by BlizzPro.com. Well Met.
Hey everybody, welcome to a very wonderful, very homely episode number 56 of Well Met. We are a Hearthstone podcast brought to you by BlizzPro.com, headquartered in Denver, Colorado. I am John Horstman, and we've got the regular crew with us. It's been on and off, guest, all this kind of stuff, but it's back to normal. First, from Saskatoon, Canada, it is Kevin Hovdestad. Kev, welcome back, man.
Thank you so much, sir. Vegas was amazing. I had an incredible time. I'll tell you guys all about it. But I missed you. This is my Sunday nights, man, is hanging out with you and all of our friends and fans. This is what I like doing with my Sundays. So it's good to be home and good to be back.
I love you too. Next up from Kansas City, he's not going to say a thing about baseball because I will end the call and mute and unadd and everything. It's JR Cook. JR, welcome back.
Hey, well met, John. How about that Minnesota team that's
Shut
not
up.
baseball?
Oh my God, I hate you so much. I hate you so much.
I'm not talking about baseball, right? No, of course not.
Of course not.
No, I'm it's good to be here. I missed you guys last week. I did go to a baseball game. It was opening day. It was fun, but I'll lie if I didn't say that I definitely missed you guys last week. So
yes, it feels reunited again. We're back, and just for you, JR, I made this for you.
Oh God.
The best.
Thanks, I appreciate
the
that.
So good.
Best.
So good.
If you are a Patreon supporter of $5 or more, you'll have access to that sounder coming up this next week. I'm just saying. So make it your text tone, your ringtone, anything else. So, oh man, it's good to be back again. Let's talk about our weeks in Hearthstone. Kevin, why don't you go first? Because I know you've been the busiest, so you probably have the least to say about it.
In a lot of ways, yeah. I think I made it up to rank 10 playing on my iPad while I was away. I left last week before we would have recorded the show, and I spent the week in Vegas at a conference. It was really cool, actually. I was there with a couple other people repping esports, so some names you might recognize if you're an old school esports fan. I was there with Greetorp, who used to be a StarCraft caster, Andre, and the manager of Echo Fox, the League of Legends team, was there, so we were hanging out with him. And Vegas is on a big esports kick. I had no idea that this was a thing, but there's a bunch of people there from the industry talking about what do we do to get younger people into Vegas casinos and back coming down and partying on the strip. And there's actually casinos that are like opening up esports lounges and putting games into the casinos. Yeah, like I went on a tour of the downtown Grand in Las Vegas, and they've got like a LAN arcade next to the blackjack tables. It's nuts. So all these people, like guys in their 40s, 50s, coming to us and saying, hey, we think what you're doing is super cool. We want to learn. Tell us more about esports. Tell us more about these games. I actually did a Hearthstone demo. We did a little like CSGO scrim. The whole thing was super cool. And we have a ton of people massively excited about esports and gaming and bringing it to the entertainment capital of, I would say, North America in Vegas. So
awesome, man. That's
it was
great.
super
that
badass.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah.
We should take a well-met trip to Vegas to verify everything that Kevin just said.
I'm down for that.
That's my vote. Jared, how about you, man? How was your week in Hearthstone?
As far as the game goes, I haven't really been playing ranked because I don't feel like it I know that the new expansion is now coming out like in the next few weeks, right? And it's just very hard for me to just want to rank up right now because I'm just ready for standard to hit. But I have been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes that are Hearthstone related. We are working on redesigning our Hearthstone website and getting that going here pretty soon. So I've been doing a lot of work with that, and hopefully we can have that launched, I would say in about a month or so. We're doing a lot of pretty cool work with that. Hopefully some better deck lists and things like that we can build for you guys. So it's going to be pretty awesome. The other thing that we had happen this week was we got our Twitch page partnered.
Woo!
So over at twitch.tv/BlizzPro. The big thing there is we now have custom emoticons, and if we can get about, I think it's 10 or 11 more subscribers, our next emoticon will definitely be a well-met one.
Met.
Haven't decided what it will be yet. Maybe Kevin's non-bearded or bearded face. I haven't decided. So we'll see how it goes.
Fair enough. That's awesome. Well, I know you've been working for a long time trying to get BlizzPro partnered, so that's awesome.
Forever.
That we're partnered now. We're on a partnered stream, and for us, even specifically for those in chat tonight, you could finally choose your the quality. So if you're on a crappy connection, you're on a bus or something, you can tone it down and bring it right in. So that's awesome.
So how about you, John?
Okay, so for me, I'm doing all right. I'm up at rank 6. I haven't played a whole lot, and it's mostly been my my spicy water streams, if you will. So not a lot of paying attention to the game, but we're up at rank 6. So that's been really fun so far. Overall, played some mid-range druid, played some mid-range hunter. That was fun. Played some Zulok, rocked a little secret paladin. I actually made it onto Top Deck, one of the really popular, funny, and it's kind of like Trollden's Funny and Lucky Moments. They're at like 100,000 views in under 24 hours, and I made it on a clip for one of those because I ran Ray's list on Secret Paladin with Sacred Trial, and a Zulok had lethal on me, laid down Leroy Jenkins. And he had Brand down, so he gave me double 1/1s, and then we destroyed his Leroy, and I died laughing. It was so funny. And so that's on. If you go to episode number 14 of Top Deck at the 5-minute and 50-second mark, I think it is now. If you go check it out, you can see me on stream laughing so hard. It was really freaking funny. So yeah, that's about it. Good week overall. Really fun week. So nice. Let's talk a little bit about the Hearthstone news.
I have one more
go
thing.
Ahead. You go ahead.
One more really quick thing I wanted to say for the people that are playing Clash Royale with us that have been wanting to join our guild. Our guild's kind of been full. We did create a second clan called Well-Met 2 TOO, so you can join that one if you're having problems joining the original Well-Met one. Make sure you go check out the subreddit /r/Well-Met Clashers if you want to get information on that in the future.
Yes.
Nice.
Let's talk about the news.
This week in Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft.
So before we do that, first and foremost, we are very excited for our live viewers who tune in every week. So next week, we're actually going to do a giveaway on the live stream. So twitch.tv/BlizzPro at 7 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time now. We will be giving away a Tespa cardback code on stream right after the show. So if you want to be eligible to do so, you have to follow Well-Met on Twitter and be watching the show next week, and you've got a chance to get a Tespa card back, so that'll be great. So we want to thank our friend Jimmy Bloxam, aka DJ Tyrant on Twitter. He does the payload with us Thursday nights with Kevin and I, for donating the co. He's an awesome dude. He's been at Heroes of the Dorm all weekend and crushing it. And so big thanks to him. Hearthstone news. So BlizzCon is back. Kevin, can you give us the details?
Absolutely. I'm very glad that these details are finally out. This announcement is now the second latest that BlizzCon has ever been announced in the history of the convention. But it's coming to you guys on November 4th and 5th of this year. Tickets are once again $199 US. Or you can pay if you want for the charity dinner. Those are a very limited selection, but they go at $750 US. Standard tickets, the $199 ones, will go on sale on 2 dates in 2 batches. April 20th at 7 p.m. Pacific and April 23rd at 10 a.m. Pacific. So you definitely want to be there. Get set up. There's a brand new ticket process with an all new ticket purchasing system this year. Thank goodness, because Eventbrite was an unmitigated catastrophe in previous years. But you guys, I assume, are going to plan on going, John, JR?
Absolutely. Once I went to one, I will never not go to one again if I can help it. So,
right on.
Yeah.
I had to miss BlizzCon, the very first BlizzCon, because at the time I was a poor college student, didn't have any money, and that was back in 2005. And I probably just dated myself really hard right here. But 2007, I wasn't able to go because I was in a friend's wedding because he planned very poorly. But I have been to every BlizzCon since, and I will plan on being at this one as well, either as press or as just a fan.
I missed a few in the middle. I went in 2007, and then I didn't go back again until 2013. So I missed a couple in the middle there, but I've been every year since. I was at 13, at 14, at 15, and my accommodations for this year, for 2016, were booked as I was leaving last year. Like on the way out the door before we left Anaheim, while we were all there, I booked my accommodations for this upcoming year. So I'll be there.
If you want me to show you guys around, show you the cool places to be, just let me know. I'll make sure that you guys don't get lost and overwhelmed. So
yeah, because you're a complete expert now at BlizzCons.
That's right. Only takes one. Only takes one for me. Yeah. I mean, do we have anything else to talk about? Oh yeah, we did. Did we talk about our card review that we got to see last week?
Not officially, no.
So if you guys did not get to see, we were very lucky to be able to reveal one of the cards for Whispers of the Old Gods, and it was pretty epic, and you should go check it out on YouTube. We talked about, did we talk about? No, we didn't. We couldn't have because it came out on Monday. So we didn't even really talk about it.
We weren't allowed to talk about it the day before.
Yeah. So. Ravaging Ghoul. It's a 3-mana, 3/3 warrior minion.
With a whirlwind battle cry. Yeah.
With a battle cry that's a whirlwind, deal 1 damage to all other minions. And
no, it's all minions.
All
it's
minions?
just the battle cry effect resolves before Ravaging Ghoul enters play, right?
It's all other minions. It does not hit Ravaging Ghoul.
Right. Yeah. Thought it said all other minions though.
Yep.
Oh man, you're gonna make me look it up, aren't you? Either way, so you should go check that out. Oh my gosh, we're getting back into the swing of things here.
Yeah, it does say
a few
all
weeks,
minions, by the way.
Yeah, cool. So, anyways, let's talk about new cards. New cards.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So
there's lots of stuff.
Yeah, lots of stuff. Before we do want to thank our friends of the show, Shawn G, Martin Z, and Albert T. Thank you guys so much for your outstanding support of the show. You are our friends of the show this month, and we really appreciate your support. If you want to know more about being a friend of the show or other ways you can support the show, head over to patreon.com/wellmetpodcast. All right, let's talk about cards here. We got a lot of cards to talk about. JR, will you do the honors and open up the card review here for us?
Yeah, so the very first card that we're going to talk about today is a Druid card. It's a 7-mana spell, and it's the most pun-worthy card in the whole set, Wisps of the Old Gods. And it says, choose one, summon 7 1/1 Wisps, or give your minions +2/+2. Kevin, I'm going to start with you. What do you think about this card?
Honestly, I actually don't hate it. It's not going to be good because it's definitely a much worse minion than much worse spell rather than a lot of the stuff that we would typically expect to see, especially for this late in the game. +2/+2 on 7 for multiple minions. You'd have to hit like a board of like 4 minions to even feel like you got value out of this, in my mind. So I don't know. I think a lot of this is going to come down to what's in the game for removal. This is the type of card where, depending on what they're doing with the traditional druid combo, it might be the kind of thing that's got some potential as a way to rebuild a board really quickly. Not very many classes can clear 7 minions. Bottom line, they're cheap. They're 1/1s. There's not going to be a lot of good things that we know of right now that it can interact with, but I would like to say I'm cautiously optimistic. It seems on its face like it should be a bad card, but I would like to think that there's something out there that we don't know about yet that this could potentially interact positively with. But yeah, right now with what we know today, it's garbage.
Yeah, I think this card kind of shows that Savage Roar is going to get nerfed. That's one of the first things I saw with this card. I think the problem I feel with this card though is that Dark Whispers is very similar, and we never saw it get play. Power of the Wild is just a better card anyway, since it gives you a +1/+1 on all minions and only costs 2 mana. If I wanted to give +2/+2 minions with all minions, I think I would rather use Cenarius, which then Cenarius, also for 2 mana more, which also gives me a 5/8 on the board. The only thing I can see is that this might be Blizzard's way of trying to push people to token Druid more. Which, keep in mind that Druid's going to be seeing a pretty major overhaul, as their late game win condition is likely going to take a big hit. So even though that these cards aren't playable today, they might be when Druid's meta shifts considerably.
We don't know anything right now about what Druid win condition will look like after the nerfs to the existing classic cards. So we have to look at cards like this and just kind of look through the lens of what could they be trying to do. So like I said, I'm trying to give Druid cards as a whole a real benefit of the doubt because there's a lot of stuff we just don't know right now.
Right.
I mean, in the end, there's 1 or 2 spells that actually get seen play that are 7 mana or more, and they're all, I mean, I guess any Fin Paladin, and then basically mage spells. You see Flame and like Strike every once in a while, Pyro, very, very few, and they're either finishing spells or complete comeback spells, ways to reset the game and start over. This card really does neither. And so, basically 7/7 for 7 isn't the worst stats in the world. I just don't see where this really fits in. And I think 7 is a lot to just give your other minions +2/+2. If you have that many on the board, chances are you don't need the +2/+2 at this point. So I hate dissing on expensive spells, but there's one thing that we've seen. It's that expensive spells are expensive and they're slow, and the meta has to slow down considerably, and tokens need to become much more valuable in order to make this card, I think, really playable. All in all, I give it a 5 out of 10, 4 out of 10, maybe 3 out of 10 for constructed.
It's just 100% down to what we see in the future, right? If Druid somehow got one of those things like the one we saw in Paladin, where a 1 health minion gets Divine Shield, if Druid got something where it got a Hobgoblin-y style buff like that, maybe, possibly, we really just don't know, right?
But even then, I think I'd rather run Dark Whispers if that was the case.
Well, sure, but Dark Whispers is rotating out, right? I don't know. I think on the whole, right, it looks bad, but then again, to John's point, high cost spells traditionally have been quite good. And comparatively speaking, we just saw Hunter get Call of the Wild, right? Which is an 8 mana epic spell and is going to get played all the time. Yeah, we'll get there. But in general, there's lots of good playable spells in the late game. It's just they have to have more swing potential, I think, than this card demonstrates when there's nothing that we know about what you can play in tandem with it.
Yeah. Would you guys play this in Arena? Is this a snap pick? I feel like
you won't see it. It's an epic. I don't think you'll see it. And I think it's up against way too many way better options as an epic.
Right. Yeah. I agree. Okay. All right. Should we talk about Possessed Villager? Let's do that. So Possessed Villager, a 1 mana 1/1 with a death rattle that reads summon a 1/1 Shadow Beast. And just for the record, a Shadow Beast is completely vanilla. It's not a demon. It's not a beast. So, all right. So this I can kind of get on board. It's Argent Squire in most cases the same, and a few actually better. So in decks that you see Argent Squire, like right now, Zoo is running Argent Squire over Flame Imp, or they're running one of each. Just because Flame Imp, when it gets removed so easily, you can't do that with Argent Squire. So this is the same thing. Yeah, overall, I really like this card. I think it's one of those cards that isn't going to make any splashes or create any new archetypes, but it's a solid 1-drop for Warlock. And I would absolutely run this in Zoolock, and all sorts of, honestly, any Zoo or any Warlock deck that needs a 1-drop in it, I would probably run this in. It's right up there. I'd say it's right on par with Voidwalker and Imp Gang Boss. Just kind of depends on the meta that you're in. JR, what do you think?
No, I agree with you there, John. And I think it's better than Argent Squire in some cases, because where Argent Squire is better is when Argent Squire gets buffed, like with getting buffed to a 2/2 or something like that. Then Argent Squire becomes better because it's a permanent buff in that case. Whereas you're not going to get that same kind of deal with this. Whereas this is better, though, is you can play it with like Power Overwhelming and then still get a dude, after that is done. And you can't get that with Argent Squire because the minion will just die. And then sticky minions just always, they just always tend to be good in the game because you can put them on the board. If something's cleared, you still have something on the board. And that's where the sticky minions are so powerful, and you see them so often in decks in the meta. The other thing is this is a very decent buff to Dark Peddler as well, because it's a card that you'll be able to pull from there.
Oh, that's true. That's very true. I actually didn't think about that one. That's a really great call. Kev, what do you think?
I'm super astonished, honestly, because this is the first Death Rattle card that we've seen come out in a very long time that's actually a really good value. Blizzard really walked away from Death Rattle in a lot of ways. And if you go back and you look through the sets that we've gotten, especially the sets that will still be in Standard when Nax and GVG rotate out, there were almost no Death Rattle minions in Blackrock Mountain. Technically, the only one was Major Domo, which doesn't get play. There's so many other bad Death Rattle minions, and they weren't generally low cost, right? Most of the Death Rattle minions were big, expensive minions, the Chilmaws and the Ronins and stuff that came out in TGT, those were
BRM.
Grand Tournament. You got and then like League of Explorers, what did you get? You got Wobbling Runts. The only good Death Rattle minion was Mounted Raptor in Druid. Other than that, really Death Rattle has just been a very neglected mechanic. So it's nice to see that it is actually going to get some play, and it's really cool that it's going to be such an awesome thing to play in Warlock of any flavor. Like this might be, in the absence of Zombie Chow or anything comparable, pretty much the default 1-drop. I would rather run this than Flame Imp. I would rather run this than Argent Squire. I think it's probably one of the best 1-drops in the game after it comes out.
Yeah, I definitely think there's argument both ways with Argent Squire. I think JR framed it really well. If you're in one of the metas where you're trying to buff up, imagine how Aggro Paladin was, where they would just run those nasty 1-drops and buff those up, and those Divine Shields were so good. But on the whole, I really do agree with you that it's a really, really good card, really solid, and really surprising that we're seeing such a strong early game card, because it really feels like a lot of the cards have been kind of shifting towards the late game. And so seeing some more early mana cost cards feels really good.
Yeah, and to JR's point too as well, right? Really great pickup from Dark Peddler, and it's a common, so you'll see it a ton in Arena, which is awesome because you definitely want to be able to get early drops in Arena wherever possible. So that's also pretty good.
Yeah. Let's talk about this next one then, the Call of the Wild. This is a pretty fun card. Kevin, you want to break it down for us?
Yeah, so I alluded to this one earlier. This is the new 8-mana Hunter spell. It's an epic spell that reads Summon all 3 Animal Companions. So you would get all of the minions that you would normally get by casting Animal Companion. You get Huffer, Misha, and Leok all at the same time.
Now wait a minute. Whenever I cast it, I always get Huffer, and Huffer.
Bingo.
Right.
That's a guy who gets it right there.
Yeah.
That guy gets it.
Well, okay, so they want to get away from the always huffer by forcing a card out that has to summon the other ones. This brings balance to the force. We go away from RNG. We get all three every time, which is crazy because this is an immense amount of board presence all at once. 3 minions is a ton to get out so quick, and they're all so good. They synergize with all the other hunter mechanics. They all get the ability to synergize with any beast spell, any beast buff. You get Leokk on the board buffing both of the other minions as they come into play, so you're doing 5 damage that turn with the huffer, whether that's face or to clear something. And when you're playing something like this on turn 8, I think like the 5 damage that you're pushing is probably going to be clearing like a 5 or 6 drop that late in the game, which is amazing because you also still have 2 bodies left behind after that. I don't see a world in which this isn't run in every serious hunter deck because other than going face, right? If you went pure face hunter, which is going to be much more difficult, I think, after standard comes out, this is a big swing turn. This is the turn that you're going to worry about against hunter all the time. And I'm just glad it's 8 because if it was any cheaper, like it would be the most powerful thing in the game. If you could combo this with like Unleash the Hounds or something, it would be broken.
Bingo. And I think that's the key thing. If there's one thing that keeps this card out of play, it's not the text, it's not anything else but the cost. If it is too slow, if we're in a faster mid-range meta or an aggro meta, this card may sadly kind of cycle out. But overall, I think it's the best hunter spell that we've maybe seen to date. Introduced, you could argue maybe Animal Companion, maybe Unleash the Hounds, but you know it's going to be an iconic hunter spell as long as it's not too slow. That's the one thing I'm worried about. Is 8 mana too slow? I personally don't think it is, especially with the new cards that we're seeing and the way that we're seeing these new cards design and kind of Blizzard's general design philosophy. But that would be my one concern. But overall, I think this is a great card. An absolutely great card. JR, what do you think?
No, this card is basically Dr. 8 for hunters. I mean, it's you get Huffer, you get the Huffer buffer, and you get the buffer for Huffer. I mean, that's just go face with 5/2, get another 5/4, a taunt guy, and you basically have a Dr. Boom there without the boom bots. Maybe even better than Dr. Boom. It's going to be amazing in wild format with mid-range hunter. It's going to be a great card for that. Unfortunately, though, in standard, mid-range hunter loses a lot of the mid-range hunter stuff. A lot of the tools that mid-range hunter currently uses is going to be rotating out, and you're not going to have that with standard. So I'm curious to see I feel that like this card's going to be really good. But I'm curious to see if mid-range hunter that we know today is still going to exist in standard. And if it is, this card's going to be really good. If it's not, this card may not be as good as what we think it's going to be.
I really hope this isn't the next Varian Rin card because I'm worried.
It's not, right? Like the difference is that we've always been very critical of super late game stuff like that because it has to be a big swing turn. You can't play anything that late in the game. Like 8, 9, 10 are turns where you have to actually get something finished, right? You're not in a position like there's a reason that nobody plays sprint on 7. They prep sprint out because you can't afford to spend a whole turn just drawing cards or clearing the board and not establishing your own board or being able to build a board but not trade and clear and take control of the board, right? The reason Varian didn't work is because if you got to a turn where you could play Varian successfully, you were already winning. And there were a lot of examples of those big win more cards in old sets. This is the first thing we've ever seen really in Hunter that gives Hunter a meaningful reason to curve higher than 6, period. Yep. Arguably Dr. Boom, if you want to go there, but realistically, in terms of actually curving out, like if you were to talk about curving out the way that Secret Paladin curves out right now, okay, Hunter ostensibly could have done that very well. You had a really great sequence of turns where you could get a really great turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4 play, pretty much all the way up to 6 with Savannah Highmane, and then there is nothing to do after that, and it was very rare that you consistently had a useful play later in the game than that. Call of the Wild is an incredibly consistent useful play. You know exactly what you get out of it for value. It's a board clear and a board presence both at the same time, which is exactly what you need on a swingy turn like that. And it opens the door to do a lot. It opens the door to be able to have, multiple of the Leox on the board to facilitate a big play with like Unleash or something like that. Heaven forbid this actually were to be playable behind something like a Tundra Rhino. Like if you were able to see real beast synergies start to occur because people could protect some of those minions. Like Beast Hunter could be a really scary thing. It could be one of the best decks in the game, assuming that you actually played it with the intent to get massive value in the mid game and set up those big swing turns.
We'll add it to the danger list. It's on the danger list.
The danger zone.
Let's go on to this next one. JR, of course, I'm going to let you introduce this one because of your affinity with Garrosh and...
Oh, God.
Go ahead and tell us about this next one.
That's never going to get old, is it?
Never, ever, 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 ever. Never, ever.
All right, so this next card is a warrior card. It's a warrior spell, another epic that was revealed this week called Blood Warriors. Add a copy of each damaged friendly minion to your hand. And the first thing that comes to mind to me when I saw this card, and I think many other people, is it's Echo of Medivh in a sense. First of all, your minions have to be damaged for it to go off, for it to be effective. But it's very similar to Echo of Medivh in the way that it works. It could be a very good fit, I think, to Control Warrior, especially in like the standard Control Warrior or Elise version of Control Warrior or Reno Warrior. A lot of people, I think this is going to go into Patron, but I honestly don't think it's going to fit in well there because the whole idea of Patron is you want to draw cards, you want to draw into your combo, and I feel like this card doesn't allow you, like it's not meant for that. Right, it's just putting the same stuff you already have in your hand when you might want to be drawing more instead. What do you think, John?
I want to pass it to Kevin because I feel like Kevin's the Control Warrior expert here. Probably has played more Warrior than all of us, so I want to hear his thoughts first, and then I'm going to just rephrase and echo what Kevin says.
Clever. I like your plan. I don't think this will see play in Control, honestly, because I think it's legitimately too slow. Typically the minions you intentionally damage in Control Warrior are either super early game plays that you don't want additional copies of necessarily, like you don't get a ton of value out of playing this on turn 3, turn 4 to get an extra Armor Smith and an extra Acolyte of Pain, right? Those are the sorts of things you would be attempting to copy, and that's not going to actually move you towards a win condition. This card has to be played in a way that actually facilitates your game plan. You have to win the game by virtue of getting additional copies of minions back. So I don't think Control Warrior is in a place to take advantage of it because the highest minion you'll ever get a useful chance to copy is a 6-mana minion. You would slap down like a Sylvanas, Whirlwind, and hit this card, and that's not a super efficient turn. That's a really inefficient turn. So you're going to use this when you have really clever ways to set up sustain in the mid game. I think that's the opportunity. So I look at it and say, I for sure would run this in Patron Warrior because right now there's a lot of stuff in Patron Warrior that's going away or doesn't make sense. You've got this weird mid game where a lot of people were running Shredder, for example. You're not going to play Shredder anymore. You maybe are running Thaurissan, and Thaurissan is great, but it's quite slow depending on what you're attempting to do in the game. But it's also not slow enough to actually contest against Control, which is where Patron starts to fall apart. If you could play this card, even as a one-of in a Patron Warrior, and pick up 2 or 3 additional Grim Patrons, right now you lose as Patron Warrior when your board gets cleared. You lose when you can't sustain board pressure. And there are so many decks like Reno Lock and stuff like that that just blow up your board because they've got those big board wipes available to them. But if you could copy and get 3 or 4 additional copies of Grim Patron back in your hand, every time they wipe the board, you just do it again, like over and over and over and over. And eventually there's no board wipes left, right? If you do the math, like if you stop and really do the math, what class could actually answer if you were to get like your initial 2 Grim Patron cards that you play and picked up another, say, 4 or 5? Arguably, it's only Warlock that could actually answer that consistently, because Warlock has multiple Twisting Nethers, multiple Hellfires, multiple Shadow Flames. They were the only class in the game that could answer that never-ending string of patrons. Eventually, every other class goes, well, that's it. I'm out of board clears. Now what?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think with Patron though, Patron has a capability of being too slow. If you don't get the card draws that you want, you don't get your patrons out. I would rather have those kind of card draws in here rather than this, so that I can get my combo out. Because if you're just sitting here with this in your hand and not your actual combo cards, then you're in a dead spot anyway, and it's not going to matter what this card does for you with Patron. And that's why I don't think it really fits well in Patron.
I mean, but Patron has so much cycle already. It's not like they never, when we talked about what was going to happen to Patron Warrior before the Warsong Commander nerf, that's why I said they needed to kill Battle Rage, because Battle Rage allows Patron to cycle in an incredibly scary fashion. It's going to be a little different with no Death Spite. It's going to be a little bit slower, but honestly, there's very few decks in the game that have that kind of sustain. There's very few decks where you can trade indefinitely, where you can rebuild a board efficiently after it's cleared. I don't know why you wouldn't run this in Patron. And I don't think there's any other warrior archetypes. Like, you can't run it in aggro warrior. It's not going to fit in control by nature of the curve. And if it did, I mean, you'd basically have to be put in a position where your opponent didn't clear your board, right? And if your opponent left you with damaged minions, if you're sitting there with a damaged Cairn and a damaged Sylvanas, like, again, if that's what's on the board when it comes back to you on your turn, you're already way ahead. Control doesn't need this card to facilitate its win condition. So I look at it as a direct and specific buff to decks like Patron Warrior, like the future potentially of a mid-range warrior of some kind.
Okay. Let me chime in here. I feel like I need to
moderate.
Well, not even moderate, because you're both dumb. You're both wrong. So I'm just kidding. You're not. You guys are doing great. But so, do I see this being played in Patron Warrior? Yes, because basically Patron Warrior right now revolves around 5 ways to kill you and 25 ways to annoy you. And so I feel like giving them, even if they get 1 or 2 patrons back into the hand, boom, that's immediate value. And Kevin's right. You go from, okay, he's got 1 or 2 patrons on the board. I hope he doesn't draw a whirlwind. I can maybe race him here. You've got outs to, crap, I have to deal with 2 more of these next turn. And this is starting to get out of hand. So I definitely see it. And the immediate obvious answer is Patron Warrior. That's just, I think that's easy. And to think that it won't be immediately tried out, and B, probably sit in Patron Warrior until people finally decide, hey, it is too slow, or yes, this is a great card for Patron. It's going to sit there. Absolutely. At the same time, I don't, and I've said this a few times over the last couple of shows, I do not believe that the Hearthstone that we play when the expansion hits is a Hearthstone where if you have a minion or 2 on the board, it automatically means you're winning. I think we are seeing that a lot with these cards coming out, that this should be more of a board jockeying game where you're not just trying to, oh crap, now this person has 2 on their board and I have 1, now I lose. That's a lot of kind of what Hearthstone is now. I think they're trying their best to get away from that. And so I don't want to say that the current way that Hearthstone exists now is going to be the same when we have Old Gods launch. And so I am cautiously optimistic that there will be ways for you to play, for Pete's sake, a Cairn and a Sylvanas, and for it to be able to survive a turn or even one of those, and Acolyte and the stupid one for give me Armor Smith. Thank you. You could have those on your board and reasonably not be super ahead of your, in a guaranteed win. So all I will say is I think that this is a very flexible card that we'll see play in lots of different archetypes of warrior. Kevin's right. Currently, you can never slot it in because it would be too slow. But I think he's also right that Patron Warrior is kind of obvious at the same time. JR, you're totally right that if you don't, this does not help you get to your win condition with Patron Warrior, and that's dangerous. That's risky. But with new cards coming in, that may not be as big of a risk.
And we don't know, right? We're speaking entirely within the context of existing archetypes. For all we know, like maybe this is the card that finally makes Axe Flinger Warrior a thing, right? Who knows? We just don't have enough information. Patron feels like the right answer to me because it's the obvious card to be able to get copies back of, and in a specific way where you get like real meaningful value out of having more than your standard 2 copies, and more than the 2 copies where you would potentially just lift one by like running it into a freezing trap or playing one of the pandas, right? If picking up a single patron was super viable already, somebody would have done it with Youthful Brewmaster or something. So this card is very much a combo piece, and the only deck right now that has all the other things to facilitate a combo piece like it feels like it's Patron Warrior. So hopefully it becomes something of a crazy new archetype we don't know of. It does for Warrior what Echo did for Mage, where you can run a crazy grinder deck. Who knows?
All right.
Bolster Taunt Warrior coming soon.
Oh man,
I'm still going to make that.
I heard that.
Still going to make
bolster top warrior. All right, let's talk about this next card here. All right, JR, you did the last one. Kevin, will you talk us through the? Oh man, I don't have the card here.
Blood of the Ancient One?
Blood of the Ancient One. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is a ridiculous card. So this was the big reveal over on, was it IGN or one of those sites last week? It's a 9 mana, 9/9 epic minion, first ever, that reads, if you control 2 of these at the end of your turn, merge them into the Ancient One. And the Ancient One is a 9 mana, 30 attack, 30 health minion.
Yes.
Which is insanity. Just pure and simple. It's insanity. It's not going to happen. You're only going to see that in ridiculous highlight reels. This is not a competitive card. There, I said it.
Okay. Why?
The opportunities to pull it off are so limited, right? And we're assuming that there's lots of changes coming in terms of removal, right? We're assuming that there's going to be changes to Big Game Hunter and less silences and all sorts of things that would make this very difficult to pull off, because you'd have to either manually play 2 of them or play it in tandem with something that could copy a minion, right? A Faceless Manipulator or whatever. So you can never do that all at once. Like you would need 2-3 ticks of Thaurissan, depending on how you wanted to do it, to pull it off on one turn. So this is always going to be a multi-turn combo. Multi-turn combos in this game have never been successful at a competitive level, period, ever. There has never been an example of a multi-turn combo that has been a game-winning win condition that showed up at a competitive level.
Okay.
Done.
JR, counterpoint.
I don't have a counterpoint because I really like it's a non-competitive card. And like Magic the Gathering has cards like this too, where they'll do something crazy and really big, but in the end, it never sees play. It's really cool this card is meant to be fun, and that's what makes Hearthstone fun, is because of cards like this. Not every card has to be a competitive card. Instead, you can try to do very crazy things to try to make this card work, but in the end, there's too many things in the game that's not going to allow you to make this consistent enough to be competitive. That's not saying you're not going to win with it, because there will be wins with this card because of it, and when people pull it off, it's going to be very epic to see. But at the end of the day, you're just not going to consistently be able to win with this card, or in general.
Okay, fine. You guys are boring.
I know. It's a fun
even
card.
If it did,
I want to make it
even
work.
if it did make it into the game, right? Right now, the way that the game is progressing, with what we're seeing in terms of what's come out from the new set so far, there's going to be a huge push for people to go back to consistent single target removal, right? You're going to see Polymorph come back. You're going to see a lot of Hex. You're going to see Deadly Shot. You're probably going to see Assassinate. People are going to need a way to efficiently remove a big minion, because Big Game Hunter is probably going away or changing in some significant fashion. So everyone's going to go back to their obvious single target removal spells. And this is not an eligible target, really, in my mind, for silence. It would be like trying to silence one of Stalagraphian, and you end up with Thaddeus popping out because one was silenced and not the other. So really, fundamentally, this is 100% about a removal-based game. We're going to see big single target-based removal, and this is not going to happen. I mean, imagine how bad you would feel paying 18 mana to get that thing on the board over the course of 2 turns. It's your whole game plan for 2 turns. And I will assume, right, because traditionally what's happened is if you... It has to be an end of turn thing as well. So you would play 1, wait, play 2, it would merge, wait. And then on the 3rd turn, you would finally be able to attack with a 30-30 minion. If your opponent can't kill you outright over those 3 turns, you were already way ahead. And if they don't have any kind of single target removal for your big minion, you'd have been better off. You've killed them with the 9/9s already. So who cares?
And I just want to see him just place a little Annoyatron right in front of it when it goes off.
Yes,
Rip
absolutely.
Annoyatron in standard.
Am I the only one? Am I crazy? Kevin, am I crazy for saying I would rather have the 2 9/9s just vanilla than actually having them merge?
Not at all.
I feel like the merge actually kind of hurts it. Yes, it's a OTK, but over 3 turns. But I just feel like
that's not an OTK at all.
That means you have to use 2 cards to remove it. And if they can't remove it, you win. Or they have 1 card, they can't remove it, you win. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, this seems like such an obvious target for all of the really clever ways that you could steal this from your opponent. This seems like a super obvious target for Sylvanas, Mind Control Tech. I would, in some decks, probably now, because there's so many other things that have changed, run double Faceless in my own deck, just so that when they slap theirs down, I double Faceless it. I get the 30-30.
Exactly.
And they sit there and go, now what? Like,
right. The best thing,
because they're not running specifically the toolkit to set this up.
The best thing that my opponent can do when I'm running a Faceless Manipulator deck is run one of these. So it would have to be a mutual agreement on everybody to be able to run this card, and then let me copy it. All right, we got our last 3 cards here.
And then it gets the follow the rules, and it's a 130.
Oh man,
becomes a 30 turn to kill.
Defender
card.
of Argus, that.
Good luck getting 231. It's true.
It's true. It's like when you get Jiraxis pulled out from like a Void Caller or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not doing a whole lot, but man, that's so annoying to deal with.
Defender of Argus, and then your opponent just goes the Black Knight, and your dreams are crushed.
Really?
But
the Black Knight? That's the one? Okay.
It's going to make
Black Knight's making a big comeback, man, for sure.
With that Bolster Warrior, I bet it is.
Yep, it is.
All right, let's go through these. We got 3 cards, but first and foremost, let's talk about Yogg-Saron, Hope's End. It's a 10 mana, 7 attack, 5 health neutral legendary that reads Battle Cry. Cast a random spell. For each spell you've cast this game, targets chosen randomly. So I need to get it all out there. I've seen people try to theorycraft on Reddit, and I've seen people try to somehow justify it. In the end, it's bad. It's bad, guys. It's bad, okay? I'm sorry. I am sorry for constructed play. If you want to go to Legend, it will not be with this card unless you are already really good and you're just doing it to say that you can do it. This is a bad card. It's slow, it's undercosted, and if you're ahead on board, you have a high likelihood to damage as well as buff. I was trying to find, do you guys know the ratio of damaged spells to buff spells in Hearthstone?
Damage is higher.
I would be willing to bet that damage is higher. So if you're ahead on board, you don't want to play this because statistically you would damage your minions before at a higher statistical chance than buff them. And if you are behind on board, it may be too little too late, and you run the risk of doing that. So the thing about running other cards that are completely random, like Unstable Portal, Piloted Shredder, is that at the end, there's a very small chance that it comes back to bite you in the face. In the end, with Unstable Portal, unless you pull out a Wisp or something, you got some sort of value, or you lost a crappy roll, right? Same thing with Piloted Shredder. Yes, sometimes you get the worst 2-drop that you could have gotten. You got Lorewalker Cho, you got Doomsayer, and that sucks. but the ability to have a death rattle and 97 or 96 or 97% of the time it be something that you can use is just worth it. This is not that. This is at the best 50-50, right? It's random. And in some situations that you can manipulate it in your favor, maybe 60-40, maybe 60-40 if you're being really optimistic. In the end, this card's bad. I am sorry. And I love everyone who wants to run this card, but I am so sorry. That's it. End rant.
So this is easily my favorite card in the set, though.
Of course,
in the entire set,
it can go in the can with bolster.
It is my favorite card. Now, I'm not saying it's. I'm not saying it's
it
good.
would synergize with
it's gonna be
bolster.
Competitive, but it's my favorite card in the entire set because of how silly it is. In a way, I mean, this is in football terms. This is your Hail Mary. I mean, this is you are down.
No, this is the John effing Madden.
This is your Hail Mary halfway through the third quarter when you're within 4 points and you decide to throw a Hail Mary on a fourth down. You're just an idiot and you should be fired.
This is your Hail Mary end of game. You're just putting it out there, see what's going to happen. You're losing anyway. You're like, okay, it's time to just throw the Hail Mary, see what happens. It's your last resort to try to win. Just throw it in the air, say your Hail Mary. That's exactly what Yogg-Saron is going to be. There's going to be so much video material for this card. It's just going to be amazing to play with. I love it. I love this card. I love that they're doing it. I don't care that it's not competitive. I want to make it work.
Because you said that, all of May, you're going to be running whatever deck you play, you have to put Yogg-Saron in there. And you have to tell me how good it is.
That's fine.
If you want to stand,
it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. It's going to be Hail Mary, and I'm going to laugh when it works.
All right.
Like the 1 out of 12 times.
Here's the thing. There are probably decks where you could intentionally run it, and the risk would maybe be worthwhile. I could potentially see you slapping this down at the tail end of a game in like Elise Warrior, where you've cast a ton of removal, you've just been playing to keep the game running in your favor as you build a ton of armor, and then you just throw this out and force your opponent to deal with all of the shenanigans that occur. Realistically, though, this card, when we're picking cards in the first place, okay, we're already at a place where we're not sure that a 10-mana minion is even a playable choice in the game at all. Because traditionally, like we said, we just finished having this conversation when we talked about Call of the Wild. That late in the game, you have to get something specific in terms of a swing turn. You have to remove your opponent's board. You have to build your own board. The only 10-mana minion in the game that's ever been viable, in my opinion, is Deathwing. It's the only thing that's ever actually had a meaningful chance for you to do something where you assert board control by removing your opponent's minions and putting your own down.
Sea Giant, but yeah. It's a mana cheat card. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I was gonna say doesn't really count. So in terms of the turn 10 plays, I would never play this card as is over Deathwing. In terms of what it can do for me on turn 10, the synergy is just bizarre and random and only works with a specific set of decks. You couldn't play this in like a Zoo deck or something. You'd have to play it in basically a bad Freeze Mage or an Elise Warrior or something that plays pure removal control. And there's very few classes that can even do that. And at the end of the day, why would you run this over even any of the other old gods? Why would you run this over Ysarj or N'Zoth? Like, I would rather flip a coin between those two, because those are the ones that you can run in any deck as opposed to the Cthulhu, where you need the Cthulhu-specific buff cards. I would rather flip a coin and take one of the other two 10 times out of 10. I would never play Yogg-Saron. It's literally an unplayable card. It's just for laughs. This is worse, mathematically worse, than like the bad like Hunter 10-mana legendary pair, the Acidmon Dreadscale pair. Like, I would rather have run that. That was more viable in terms of a swing turn on turn 10. That was better as a turn 10 play with a legendary than this is.
I'm just going to include
and that's disgustingly bad.
I'm just going to include it in my Freeze Mage deck and just keep it in my hand until the very end, just to see what happens.
For the turn where you've already lost,
I'm already losing at that point. I know I'm going to lose. It's my Hail Mary. That's all this card's going to be.
No one's going to play Yogg-Saron.
I am.
No one's going to do it.
I am.
No one's going to do it.
Did you just think of that now?
I did, yeah.
Did you? Oh, Yogg-Saron.
Sorry.
I like that. Okay.
Yogg-Saron.
Moving on. Let's keep the train moving. Cho'Gall. Kevin, tell us about Cho'Gall, please.
I would love to tell you about Cho'Gall. So Cho'Gall is a Warlock card. Where am I going here? There we go. It's a 7 mana, 7/7 legendary minion that reads Battlecry. The next spell you cast this turn costs health instead of mana. This is a phenomenally cool card, and I would have played this card so happily in basically any other class than Warlock. So right now, until we see some of the new Warlock spells, and I'm very confident that there are going to be new Warlock spells, this card doesn't look really great on paper. It's very powerful. It's very effective. There's not a really great alternate choice on 7 in Warlock right now in my mind. So if you're going to play a late game Warlock, there's lots of potential here. It would be great in Reno. It would be moderate to okay in some kind of handlock. But as it stands, there's so few spells that it makes sense to play in tandem with Cho'Gall that I just don't see it happening. Am I wrong?
Yep.
This is literally like, instead of playing Siphon Soul on 6, I play Cho'Gall Siphon Soul on 7. That's about the only combo I've heard anybody mention that I could see being worthwhile.
Yeah, it's a War Golem, which isn't a very good card, with a cheesy effect, with one card, maybe two, that makes it any good. And Siphon Soul is the main one. The Shadow Flame is another one, but that's just not a really good play. It's an okay play if you really need to clear the board, but there's other ways to deal that without worrying about also playing a 7/7 that you're going to clear automatically and lose 4 life. The only other card that will be rotating out that would make this really good in wild format would be Implosion. But that's it. Warlock just doesn't have and then in wild, I would rather play Dr. Boom than in turn 7 than play this with Implosion. In any format I see, it's just not a card that I would seriously want to play with Warlock. And that, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this card's going to be really good. And then I thought about it, and I went to look at the spells that Warlock has, and I'm like, oh, never mind, this kind of sucks. In any other class, I think it would have been really good.
Right, and bear in mind, no synergy right now with Warlock because there's no synergy with demons. It's not like he works as a demon. The one thing I will say is if this had not been a battle cry effect, I probably would have played it. If this had been done as if it were comparable to something like, what's the 2/2 that lets you cheat out 1 minion a turn? I just had it and I lost it. The 2 mana 2/2 Pint-Sized Summoner. Pint-Sized Summoner.
Yep.
If it worked like Pint-Sized Summoner and it was the first spell you cast per turn while Cho'Gall was alive, then sure, because you have to get him on the board and keep him on the board for a turn, so he wouldn't have the same immediate board impact. But then you could do something cool with him every turn, and that to me would facilitate handlock. It would be really powerful. Whereas right now, it feels like there's not even a good Battlecry synergy in Warlock. This is really just a wasted slot unless Warlock gets some really good spells to replace Dark Bomb and Implosion. And they may, and if they do, then between the Dark Bomb replacement, the Implosion replacement, Siphon Soul, and one of your AoE removal spells, there might be an argument to be made for it. But until that point, it's pretty weak.
Yep. I would just rather play Siphon Soul by itself than to play this along with it, because I'm basically taking a card out of my deck at that point to try to do that, and it makes no sense to me to do it that way.
If you're choosing to play this for removal right now, I actually think in most cases you would be better served playing Baron Geddon on 7.
Yep. Honestly, something too that I've been thinking of, I think that this card would be better if Warlock had ways to control and manipulate its health more, but with Healbot going away, there's not a lot of great heals left, so you also run a great risk of, doing too much damage too quickly. And it seems to make sense. Handlock can make it do it, but without Healbot there, you don't have that way to kind of manipulate up and down, down to 12, back up to 20 type of thing to really make that dangerous. So I just don't think it's dangerous enough. I think the risks outweigh the rewards too many times.
Yeah. Old school pre-healbot handlock was actually super dangerous because you'd push yourself really low, but then you were trapped on your 6 health. You had your big wall of taunts, but you, best case scenario, could Siphon Soul or Earthen Ring Farseer, and then you sat within like Fireball Ping or Pyroblast range or whatever and just hoped that your opponent didn't run burn spells or had used them all already.
Right. All right. Let's talk about this last card here, and then we've got an email and we need to get out of here. So, Sagoth the Slitherer. JR, tell us about this card.
Yeah, so Sagoth the Slitherer is a 9 mana neutral legendary with 5 attack, 9 health. It has taunt, and it can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. And I think this is a really boring legendary card. It's not very meta defining. However, don't think that because I say that it's a bad card, because against like rogue, priest, or mage, like they're gonna have a very difficult time dealing with this card. And the only way to really deal with this card is to kill it outright with your minions, silence it, or use Black Knight. And silence, like, we have a decent, I wouldn't, a good idea that Ironbeak Owl is probably going to get a nerf. Yes or no? Maybe. If it does, this card obviously becomes better. If it doesn't, this card becomes slightly worse. But this card does have a potential to be in a lot of several decks that need like a late game card and can get in the way of your opponent to help kind of turn things around. I can see it going in control decks as potential there. It's not terribly exciting as a card, but I could definitely see it as a sleeper for control decks. What do you think, John? Or Kevin?
So immediately what I thought is this could be great in Aviana Druid. Be able to push out Aviana and then, rock this card right there. And, that's going to be difficult to deal with. So I actually like this card in Druid. There are ways to deal with this card, which is fair. But there are also significant boundaries put on how you can remove this card. This is one that it kind of reminds me of Spectral Knight, where it's good, it sees play from time to time, but is pretty meta dependent. And I feel like when you're playing that late in the game, there may be cards that are slightly better to run, but with some of those cards going out, maybe not. But I do think there's room for this card. I would call this card playable, and I could also say I could put this card in the surprise category, where there may be some ways for this card to really surprise us. Like I said, Aviana Druid could be really great. And so I'm not going to say cautiously optimistic, because chat is going to explode. I am going to say I am stoically waiting for somebody to do these cards and these decks well. Kev?
Stoically waiting.
Yeah, I think you've hit all the obvious high notes. I don't know. I think, like, this is a card that I want to see cheated out somehow. I want it to get pulled by Yogg-Saron. I want some other way to get it on the board other than paying for it, basically, because paying for it sucks. It's not a great stat line for its cost. The magic immune thing is cool because it means that there's very few ways to deal with it cleanly. Right now, assuming no changes, it's basically Master Spell, Keeper of the Grove, Ironbeak Owl, Spellbreaker, and then Black Knight and random removal effects, right? So your traditional, like, Deadly Shot, Tinkmaster Overspark, anything that can hit a random minion, right? You can't target it with targeted silence spells. You can't silence it. You can't Earthshock it. There's not a lot of stuff that can answer it. So in theory, it's probably the biggest, baddest taunt in the game. In practice, again,
not if you count Druid's Ancient of War.
Oh, I'm not talking stat line. I just meant in terms of like how you answer it, right? Ancient of War is way easier to answer than this card is. So I want it to be good. I want this to be the card that says if you can survive to turn 9 as a control deck, or survive to turn 9 against aggro and drop this on the board, you win. And ostensibly, there will probably be other cards that will support that. There will be cards where you would play this, and behind it you would maybe run some of the crazy per turn healing cards that haven't been seeing play. This would set up the ability for you to get value out of like vitality totems and illuminators and whatever, right? Whatever cards are left that have those kinds of effects. But I don't see it right now. I run in my head through every deck archetype and think, in what deck would I be willing to pay the 9 mana to get this out on turn 9 or later in the game?
You gotta cheat it.
You just about can't. Like, if you got it out in Ramp Druid, maybe, but outside of that, there's just no way. There's no way you can justify it. You have to Thoros on it. You have to cheat it out. You have to something, because it's just not really good enough for 9 mana.
I would say if Rogue or Priest somehow dominate the meta in Standard, which I'm not sure if that will happen. I don't think it will. If they somehow dominate the meta, then I think this card would be a very good tech choice if you're running a control deck yourself.
And I mean, there are things about it that are cool, right? Like, it survives a hit from Ragnaros. It survives basically everything you can think of, because you have to hit it with 9 damage that isn't a spell.
It's beefy.
Nine's a scary number. 9's a number that you don't really get good answers for. But I don't know. I just don't see it. I see it getting ruined by random removal. I see it getting ruined by Peacekeeper, by quality, by all sorts of stuff that's actually still very common to see, let alone the number of straight up hard removals. This gets Twisting Nethered or Shadow Flamed or any number of other things, and it just goes away. Like, there's too many things that answer this type of problem. If Magic Immune was really good, we'd have seen tons of people running the other Magic Immune minions. Which of the Magic Immune minions have you seen played? This is just an enormous Arcane Nullifier. How many times did you legitimately see Arcane Nullifier intentionally played out on curve? You did.
Yep. I think we're all in agreement here. I think we can conclude on that note. I think that'll end our card review for this week. And I'm going to say it right now, guys. Kapala's Tome is a bad card. All right. Sorry. Had to go ahead and say that. Yeah. We got mail, don't we? You got mail?
We got mail.
We've got mail.
I forgot that I haven't made a new mail one yet. That's our old one. I love that. That's
how long it's been since we got a good email. Guys, email us. Oh, my goodness.
Gosh, email us. Jeez. JR, read us the email this week, will you?
Yeah, so we got an email this week. It says, "Hey there, dear podcasters. I've been listening to your podcast ever since your Yong-Woo episode and have been loving it. Truly great stuff you have going on." Sorry, my screen cut off real quick. Truly great stuff you have going on here. Insert words of encouragement. To my question, other long-living games such as WoW or Magic the Gathering have endured so long in part because they managed to build strong social ties to their games. While a phenomenally awesome community has formed around Hearthstone, see Reddit, Twitch, or podcasts such as yours, not much of that can be seen or felt in-game. Do you guys feel that Blizzard should encourage more social interaction in Hearthstone? And if yes, how should they do that? With guilds, co-op, sharing deck receipts, replays, any kind of incentives to battle friends. Keep being awesome, Pascal. Kevin, I know that you really liked this email when we saw it, so I will let you be the first to answer it.
For sure. Right on. So first off, thank you, Pascal. This is a super cool question, and I think this is the kind of stuff that I always love digging into, because I love digging into some of the like game design and game feature stuff, and we haven't had a good chance to talk about that in a really long time. So having said those things, Hearthstone, I think, because it's a mobile game, has some significant limitations in terms of how much you can do within the game client itself. I loved when they introduced spectator mode, and I continue to hope that they refresh spectator mode at some point and make it a little bit more compelling, a little more interesting. I would love to see a more robust game client in terms of some of the raw features, better in-game accounts so I could compare myself with my friends, better options for things like replays or the ability to go back and maybe like build a custom game state based on where I was in a game and try a different combination to see if I missed something. I think there's lots of opportunities to make the game client a little bit more interesting in a way that would allow you to engage with other people with your personal content, whether that was replays or spectating or whatever. Having said all of those things, this is not a game that's going to build a community internally, right? The reason that WoW had a community like that was because you had to go meet new people within the game to play the game. Your comparison to Magic, I think, is actually really apt because Magic has a very, very rich community. They play, Friday Night Magic, and they've got all their tournament scenes, and it's a game that's played very socially. And Blizzard's trying to get a really good on-the-ground program going with things like fireside gatherings. People are making their own Hearthstone clubs. They're throwing small tournaments. They're playing it at, esports bars and all these different things. I think the game has actually a rich, thriving community, like you said, and I don't think Blizzard can do a whole lot about that within the game itself. I think Blizzard's best avenue to make Hearthstone a social game is really push the Fireside Gathering program, make those as attractive as possible, and they've done a great job of that, in my opinion. I think that it would be very cool if they continued to support that by encouraging more things like how we get Tavern Heroes that get to play in the Hearthstone Championship Tour. I think it would be very cool if there was more stuff like that. I think it would be great if I, as someone who wants to run tournaments and could organize small events, could get some additional nifty giveaways, whether that's Blizzard gear from their merchandise store or free card packs or something. And obviously you've got to institute controls for that kind of stuff. That might be something where, to your point about doing something in the game, maybe they could introduce quests for, like they have the quest for spectating your friends. They could introduce other things like that where there's actually a benefit to you playing a game against your friends or whatever. There's lots of little things like that they could do that would just up the ante slightly. That's a kind of a long-winded way for me to say I think the game is in a great place socially in general. I think the game client is not necessarily the answer if you'd like to see a better system of social interaction around the game. What did I miss, guys?
I think you basically have hit the nail on the head on a lot of different things. I think they can really do two things, and I think one of them that they're really working on, and one of them is making fireside gatherings more approachable, easier to know about, easier to run in a way. And I do know that they have like a job posting for something like that, where a person is going to be a product manager or something to that effect. I don't remember the exact title, where they're actually going to be working with the development team to, looks like, produce something with fireside gatherings that potentially either could be a website type thing or within the client itself. And the job posting wasn't very clear. So I think they're going to be pushing that more and more. The other thing that I think they could really do is some things in the client itself. And we've talked about Clash Royale here a little bit. One of the there's two things that game I feel does very well is it has a clan system. And I've been having a blast in that game with the clan system and talking and playing with our listeners. If we had something like that in Hearthstone, that would be amazing. I would love that. The other thing that they allow on there is replay sharing within the clan. So one of the things that people were doing is they would play a game and then post a replay in the clan and go, how did I play this correctly? How did I play this wrong? What can I do to make myself better? And that's a tool that Hearthstone is really missing that I think they could really use in the client itself, is being able to have that team, that clan, that guild that you can easily share your replays across, with each other and then give each other advice without having to watch the game live with that person.
All right. So fireside gatherings, I think you guys nailed it. Replay mode, I think you guys nailed it. I'm on the fence with clans overall, but just the ability for me to save a replay and send a link to somebody on my friends list or post it up on my Twitter and say, what did you guys think I did wrong here? Or check out this awesome game or whatever, I think is valuable and inevitable. I think for people who want a clan system, I see that coming outside of Hearthstone as soon as they finally decide to get that API thing up and running. I can totally see websites where you can have those types of things. Probably because they don't want to make clans feel mandatory. They don't want to feel like you have to play it with a group. And
yeah, that is one of the downfalls with Clash Royale, is it does feel very mandatory to be in one.
Right. And so I see that. I think fireside gatherings are the key. Replay modes are the key, and a strong Hearthstone API for the PC client. So yes, I do advocate toward, outside of playing ladder and playing arena and tavern brawl and building decks, I do advocate for a split in the PC and mobile clients. And so just for those types of reasons, having an API. And let's not forget, we do have the Battle.net voice chat alpha there, which also allows us to be able to chat with friends, voice chat with friends within Battle.net. So they've kind of already done that, but you can see they're definitely straying away from doing it in the client. I don't think Hearthstone's features will fundamentally change for ways for you to chat mid-game with your opponent. You know, we won't see that. It'll always be the little emotes. Clans, I don't think we'll ever see that. And I personally don't think it'll be a healthy thing overall. But those are my 3-4 things that I think will be key for this for happening.
Yeah, and just keep in mind, if you want to be social with the community, definitely check out our Discord channel at blizzpro.discord.com. Join that, and we'll talk about Hearthstone with us there.
Yep. All right. Thank you so much for your email, Pascal. You can send us your emails to wellmet@blizzpro.com. We love to talk about those, as you can tell by our long-winded rants at the end of the show. Patreon news. Kev, you got the Patreon news up for us?
I sure do. So we hit a very cool milestone, and we wanted to say a special thank you this week. We have 50 patrons of the show right now, which is very cool. We're super thankful to you guys. You're doing a phenomenal job helping us get this show off the ground. We're trying to do as many cool things for you guys as we can. We're very open to your feedback, so especially for you guys, patrons that are supporting us, thank you again. Get in that Facebook group. Tell us what you want to see, what you want to hear. We'll keep doing that stuff for you guys. This week, we want to say a special thank you to Corey J, who is new. Thank you so much. And remind you that we are very, very close to hitting our next milestone, where we will start to record a bonus show every month. So get in there. Let's push this thing over the top, and then you guys can look forward to 12 extra shows every year, because we all know you can't get enough of listening to Yogg-Otta, oh God.
Oh man, you made me say it.
Yogg-Otta!
Oh God.
Love it. So good. Also, big thanks to our friends of the show, Shawn G, Martin Z, and Albert T. You guys are amazing. And check out patreon.com/wellmetpodcast for more iTunes reviews, JR.
Yeah, this week we got some awesome iTunes reviews. From the USA, we got one from Mad Scout BTFU, who is in our Twitch channel right now talking with us. Awesome dude. We really appreciate it. From Canada, we have the Model Martel. And from Australia, we have Vinny Leo 11. Thanks so much for those reviews, guys. Those help us so much. If you want to leave us a review, just go over to iTunes, type in Hearthstone, find the Well Met podcast, and you can leave a review on there. And I just wanted to say, guys, like, if I could go back in time and rename this podcast, I think I would name it Yogg-Otta, oh God, instead of Well Met.
Nope. No, you would not. That's an awful idea.
No, it's a great idea.
And by the way, if you don't run iTunes and you don't have an iTunes device, you can also leave a review on Stitcher. We are set up to check those as well. So if you leave a review on Stitcher, we can also read those on the show for our Android, Windows Phone friends, or people who don't like iTunes. So you can do that. All right, shout outs for the week. Kev, let's let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I want to say a big thank you to all the guys that I got to hang out with while I was in Vegas and did the cool stuff down there. So I don't know if any of them are going to be listening to this show, but Jake from Echo Fox, Will or Reno, the Pro Smash guy I work with, all the guys who were down there, we got to do some very cool stuff. We're hoping to get to do some more cool stuff. Looking forward to potentially making a presentation to some like regulatory bodies, to travel and maybe do some additional conferences. It's a very cool opportunity, and I'm super excited to be just repping esports to anybody who will take the time to listen. So that was really awesome. Also, for those of you who are listening to the show, I'll give you a heads up because you hang out with us every weekend. I'm going to be doing a Twitter giveaway this week. My follower account blew up, and I've been really excited. I've been putting it off. I wanted to wait till I was home. So I have 2 of Blizzard's Hearthstone Steel Series QCK Plus mouse pads sitting on my desk ready to be given away. I'm going to put up a Twitter giveaway tomorrow, let it run for a couple days. So if you want a free mouse pad, follow me on Twitter at Lack of Realism and check for that sometime tomorrow afternoon.
Am I eligible for that?
Totally, dude. Get in there.
Really? You really think people would be okay with that? I don't think so.
You mean I don't think you'll win?
All right. I mean, statistically, that's not a stretch. All right, JR, shout outs for you, man.
I just want to give a quick shout out to all of our awesome listeners and people who have given to the podcast in some way, either through Patreon or subscribing recently on our Twitch channel. You guys are awesome. I love hearing from you every week. Continue tweeting at us, emailing us. We love interacting with you guys. You guys are the reason why we do this every week.
Yes. All right. Last but not least, me first. I've had an awesome time this last week hanging out with lots of new friends that I've met over on my stream. I stream quite a bit now at twitch.tv/kickedtripod if you want to come hang out. I'm actually going to be streaming right after the show tonight. So about 20-25 minutes afterwards, going to go ahead and do some streaming if you want to come hang out, play some Hearthstone, and just kind of kick back and relax. You should definitely do that. Besides that, I don't really think I have a lot to say. So let's go ahead and get this guy out of here. So that's going to do it for us this week. You can tune in together with your friends live every Sunday on twitch.tv/BlizzPro at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or find us on your favorite podcast outlets for updates throughout the weeks. Follow us on Twitter at WellMed Podcast, and WellMed is entirely supported by our fans. Find out more at patreon.com/WellMed Podcast. We also have merch at store.blizzpro.com. One of us usually wears them every week. We're not wearing them this week, so I don't know what's up with that. And as always, a big thank you to Jake Butineau over at jakebutineau.ca for our music and Scythe Designs for our graphics. Thank you again for joining us for episode 56 of Well Met. We will see you next time.
Well Met is a production of BlizzPro.com. The show records live at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at twitch.tv/BlizzPro. To get the latest news and information about the show, follow us on Twitter at Well Met Podcast, or join us on our subreddit at reddit.com/r/WellMetPodcast. If you would like to support the show, you can find out how at patreon.com/WellMetPodcast.
Oh, God.